everyone, Zach Pakoff here, and welcome back to another lesson video. Today, I will be going over the 3-4 text. So let's jump right into the video.
Alright, so as I had stated before, I'm going to be going over the 3-4 text. And in this lesson, we'll be talking about proving and ruling a journal. And this, believe it or not, is the last lesson in Chapter 3. That's right, after I finish recording, editing, and uploading this video, along with the 3-4 work together, we'll be done with Chapter 3, and we'll be moving on to Chapter 4 very soon. But anyway, let's jump right into the 3-4 text. So in this first part of the lesson, we'll be talking about proving a journal page. So when we prove a journal page, there are 3 steps that are followed in this process. So the first step that we do is we add each of the amount columns. Next, we add the debit column totals, and then we add the credit column totals. And finally, we verify that the total debits and total credits are equal. And because the total debits equal the total credits, page 1 of the journal is proved. However, if the total debits do not equal the total credits, then errors must be found and corrected before any more work is completed. And what I just explained in those steps is right up here, so I'll give you a moment to look at this as well. Okay, next we'll be talking about ruling a journal page. So when we rule a journal page, after a journal is proved, it is ruled. And 5 steps are followed in ruling a journal page. So the first step that we do in this process is we rule a single line across all amount columns directly below the last entry to indicate that columns are to be totaled. Then, on the next line, we write in the date, which is the 20th, in the date column. Next, we write carried forward in the account title column, and we place a check mark in the post-reference column. And the use of the post-reference column is described in Chapter 4, which will be the next chapter that we'll be learning about. Next, we write each column total below the single line. And finally, we rule double lines below the column totals across all amount columns. And a double rule in a journal indicates that the amounts are totals and that the sum of the debit totals equals the sum of the credit totals. Alright, next we'll be talking about starting a new journal page. So when we start a new journal page, there are 4 steps that are followed when doing this process. So the first step that we do is we write in the page number that is 2 at the top of the journal. Then we write in the date, which is the current year, and then the month, and then the date in the date column. And because this is the first time that a date is written on page 2, the year, month, and day are all written in the date column. Then we write brought forward in the account title column, and a check mark is also placed in the post-reference column. And finally, we record the column totals brought forward from the previous page. So the steps that I just explained for that are right up here. I'll give you a moment to look at this as well. Okay, next we'll be talking about proving and ruling a journal at the end of a month. So the instructions for this are on the next page, so let me go to that. So when we prove and rule a journal at the end of a month, there are 5 steps that we follow when doing this process. So the first step that we do is we rule a single line across all amount columns directly below the last entry to indicate that the columns are to be added. Then on the next line, we write in the date, which is the 31st, in the date column. Then we write the word totals in the account title column. And a check mark is not placed in the post-reference column for this line. More information about the totals line will be provided in the next chapter, which will be Chapter 4. Then we write each column total below the single line, And finally, we rule double lines below the column totals across all amount columns. And the double lines mean that the amounts are totals and that the debit totals equal the credit totals. So what I just explained for those steps is right up here, and I'll give you a moment to look at this as well. Okay, next we'll be talking about proving cash. So proving cash is determining that the amount of cash agrees with the accounting records. So what we're going to be doing in this next part is proving cash. So it says that the checkbook balance on the next unused check stub is $4,964. Well, the first thing that we have to do is calculate the cash balance. So it says that the cash on hand at the beginning of the month is $0, and Techno Consulting began the month with no cash balance. Then Ms. Park invested in the initial cash on August 1st. So the first thing that we're going to do is add in the total cash received during the month, and this will give us the total. So the cash received during the month, that means that it's our cash debt. So we are going to add in the cash debit column for this, and this will equal our total. So since we have started off with $0 and we added in $8,315, that automatically gives us $8,315. Then we subtract the total cash paid during the month, and this is the cash credit, because cash paid is cash credit. So if we take the total and subtract it from the total cash paid during the month, that will give us the cash balance at the end of the month. And the cash balance at the end of the month is also the same as the checkbook balance on the unused check stub. So since the cash balance on the unused check stub and the cash balance at the end of the month are the same, cash is proved. And finally, we'll be talking about standard accounting practices. So for number 1, this one reads that errors are corrected in a way that does not cause doubts about what the correct information is. If an error is recorded, cancel the error by neatly drawing a line through the incorrect item. Write the correct item immediately above the canceled item. Okay, so for number 2, this one reads that sometimes an entire entry is incorrect and is discovered before the next entry is journalized. Draw neat lines through all parts of the incorrect entry and journalize the entry correctly on the next blank line. For number 3, this one reads that sometimes several entries are recorded after an incorrect entry is made. The next blank lines are several entries later. Draw neat lines through all incorrect parts of the entry. Record the correct items on the same lines as the incorrect items directly above the canceled parts. Alright, so for number 4, this one reads that words in accounting records are written in full when space permits. Words may only be abbreviated when space is limited. All items are written legibly. Okay, next for number 5, this one reads that dollars and cents and decimal points are not used when writing amounts on ruled accounting paper. Sometimes a color tint or a heavy vertical rule is used on printed accounting paper to separate the dollars and cents columns. For number 6, this one reads that 2 zeros are written in the cents column when an amount is in even dollars, such as $500. If the cents column is left blank, doubts may arise later about the correct amount. For number 7, this one reads that a single line is ruled across amount columns to indicate that a calculation such as addition. For number 8, this one reads that a double line is ruled across amount columns to indicate the amounts are totals. In a journal, the double rules also indicate that the debit totals equal the credit totals. And finally, for number 9, this one reads that neatness is very important in accounting records, so there is never any doubt about what information has been recorded. and a ruler is used to make single and double lines. What I just explained for that is right here, and I'll give you a moment to look at this as well. Okay, so that is the end of the 3-4 text. In the next video, I will be going over the 3-4 work together. Okay, thank you.